everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Moss HR Minute. I'm Nicole Moss. I'm the co-founder and HR director for Moss Consulting HR Services, where we help business owners solve the people problem and operational challenges that they face every day. Today, we're coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona, and I am joined by Preslie Deusenbery, who's our Phoenix area HR manager, who works directly with local business owners and leadership teams here in the Valley. We're also joined today by Carly Whiteside, who is the owner of Copper Wren Law. That is a Mesa-based boutique law firm focused on estate planning, probate, trust administration, and business legal services. Carly built her firm with a strong emphasis on clarity, compassion, and client experience, helping families and business owners navigate some of their most complex emotional decisions while also running and growing a business of her own. On this show, we sit down with leaders, experts, and entrepreneurs to uncover the real issues business owners face and how to tackle them with modern solutions. Carly, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's talk about an estate planning blind spot.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sure there's lots of them.
There are.
So business owners often delay estate planning because it feels overwhelming with everything else that they're doing. What's one of the biggest mistakes that you see that causes real problems for business owners later?
Great. So, one of the biggest problems that I see for business owners when they neglect their estate planning is if, God forbid, something happens to them. And I don't just mean death, I mean incapacity, car accident, coma, fell, just out of the office. Maybe you're on pain meds, not to be making decisions, not to be moving money. So, it's really important that your LLC agreement has provisions in case these things happen so that if you go down, your next person in line can step up. You've given them the authority. They know where to seek the information, i.e., passwords, having access to payroll, because the last thing we want as business owners is we take care of our people, our employees. And so if something happens to us, we need to make sure that they're taken care of and their life doesn't get derailed because we had something happen. And so that's what I see the most is, they get injured, something happens, maybe they have a death in the family and they're just distraught. And so they're not able to be in the business present, mentally. And so that's the biggest blind spot that I see is they don't make contingency plans.
Awesome.
What's a simple first step that a business owner could take to avoid all of that?
A simple first step is to call an estate planning attorney or a business attorney. A lot of firms will do both. We touch a little bit on that stuff. My firm more focuses on the probate and trust admins, kind of when things have already settled or litigation. But a lot of estate planning firms will do both because they just go so hand in hand. You do your LLC agreement, you do your estate plan, you can fund your LLC into your trust. There's protections with that. But every business is different and every business owner is different. They're very customizable documents.
Okay.
And so it's really important that you seek legal counsel because what's good for you in your business type is not necessarily good for somebody else. So if you're talking to other business owners and they're like, oh, you don't need all that, I just did this, that could be true for their situation. It could be very true, but you don't want to leave any stone unturned kind of deal and say, oh no, I'm good when there was a whole host of issues that you didn't even think about because you didn't meet with somebody who's seen it, been there, done that, knows what to ask.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people that started businesses in 2020, which a ton of people did,
Mhm.
I would bet my bottom dollar that most of them did not do that hand in hand. We started our business before 2020 and didn't do that. We don't have an estate plan. So is it ever too late to start that
No,
process?
it's never too late. I know it's a very intimidating process and nobody wants to talk about their death. Nobody really wants to talk about their money and be transparent with a stranger, which the
Yeah.
attorney is a stranger, which is why it's really important to interview a few. You want to talk to a few different attorneys. There's personality things, there's experience levels, and you should really be comfortable with who you choose to do your business planning and estate planning because you need to be extremely honest with them. Even if it's ugly, gross, weird, hairy, doesn't matter. You need to tell them because I will tell you the other issue we see is you going to do it, but you kind of gloss over what's actually going on. Maybe you don't mention, hey, just an example. My spouse has a child from a previous marriage who's an adult. We have minor children. Okay, it's important because if something happens to your spouse, that kid can come in and kind of start to wreak havoc. And it's not anybody thinks about it. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how the cards fall down sometimes. And
Mhm.
so, like I said, it's really important that whomever you pick, you can just tell them the ugly truth, because that will give you the best protections possible, because then they can actually do the planning that's needed.
Yeah. You really touched on it that probate's scary. It's got a big reputation. People don't want to go near it. I mean, I hear the word and I'm like, ooh. So like in Arizona specifically, because I know it's different in different states, what do people misunderstand maybe about probate and how it works?
So the misunderstanding with probate is that the court is really involved in watching every little thing you're doing and is up your you know what. That's not true. It's only if it's a supervised administration, which those are extremely rare. I've never seen one actually go into effect. I've seen them asked for, but never granted. So probate here happens if there is no trust. Some states, if you have a will, that's enough to keep you out of probate. In Arizona, it's not. If you have a will, it does need to get filed and probated. If you have a trust, though, and it's properly funded, then you don't need probate. So a lot of the times it's people who die with nothing or they die with a will. And then we do have to go through the probate process. And there's some different mechanisms in Arizona for formal, informal, that kind of stuff. It's not a scary process if you have the right guidance. Not everybody needs an attorney to do probate. Like if you're an only child and your parent passed away and they have a house and a bank account, you can probably manage that, right? Because you don't have anybody you're accountable to. It's just coming to you. You're not going to sue yourself. I mean, I guess you could. Stranger things, but it's really what I see the issues in probate where people have horror stories is mixed families. So we've got stepkids and half siblings, or when I see that somebody is maybe on their second or third marriage and that spouse is 10, 20 years younger, and maybe it was a 1 to 5 year relationship before that other person passed. That's when I see the clause come out. And that's when it gets kind of yucky, because then kids in their presumably 40s and 50s are like, well, you just came around mom or dad at the end, but they're the spouse. So they usually get the lion's share, and that is very upsetting. And so that's kind of where I see when people have a negative visceral reaction, it's because of the family drama, not necessarily probate itself.
Okay.
So if a business owner becomes incapacitated or passes away without a plan, what happens to that business like instantly when that happens?
So what happens with that business is if they pass away with no plan or they're incapacitated without powers of attorney, basically no one to step in, that business freezes. The accounts freeze, everything comes grinding to a halt. Which is pretty much your worst nightmare in a business is, we got to keep the wheels turning.
Yeah.
So everything basically gets frozen. And then now we've got to get somebody appointed by the courts here, whether they're alive or not, to act on their behalf and have authority to basically step into their shoes. Either process can take time. Most of the time it's a 6 to 8 week, like they've passed or they're incapacitated and now somebody's, done the paperwork, got in front of the judge, and so it's not a quick process.
What happens to the employees that should like on payroll runs? They're just not getting paid.
They're not getting paid.
And does that later make legal ramifications?
It does. The estate, like if they continued to work, the estate would step in and owe them the payroll back wages. But a lot of, I know in this day and age, nobody can work for free and just be like, yeah, get me in 6 to 9 months.
Right.
After you're appointed, the creditor period's passed, there's an order of operations. So nobody just gets appointed and then jumps in and everything's back to normal.
Yeah.
We have to do an accounting. We have to figure out, where does this business go? Does it get sold? Are the heirs even capable? Like if somebody dies with all minor children, they can't step into the business and run the business. It needs to get sold for their benefit. And so then you run into another problem of, okay, how's that going to look? Does somebody on staff want to purchase? Like it just opens up a whole host of issues because nobody made a plan. Nobody made their intentions clear. And usually that's when we have people going, well, they told me this and they told me that. And the name of the game in probate and trust is, if it's not written down, it did not happen.
Yeah. It's and I think that as business owners, you're busy. Like that's all, it's hard. And that's like, I bet that's one of those things that just gets bumped to the bottom.
It does.
And to the bottom
It
it does.
does.
And then
Okay, but if we could only pick one document to go to the top of the list, which would it be to prevent some of that chaos?
I would do your LLC agreement over an estate plan
Okay.
because that's going to govern your business. So if you've got to pick, do your LLC agreement, your operating agreement.
Mhm.
That is what's going to outline what happens to your business if you go down either incapacity wise or passing away. So if you've got to pick and it's not ideal, but if you have to do it, do the operating agreements.
Okay. When does a trust become essential then?
A trust usually becomes essential when you have a good amount of assets. So if you own a business, you're in that category. If you purchase a home is another good marker.
Okay.
When people get married, because now you're blending families. Or if you have a child. So any large life-changing events, a trust kind of comes into play.
What about from like a business owner perspective? Is it at the onset of the business or is there a threshold?
I mean, if you're starting out of your closet in your house, you're probably okay. But I would say once you start hiring employees and you have people depending on you, you kind of need to take yourself out of the selfish motive. I really don't want to do this task and say, I need to do this task because there's people that depend on me. And if I go down, their life gets shaken up in a big way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the cost of, I mean, for business owners, every penny counts. What is a general cost for setting that up?
So just as an example, I'll use myself as an example. When I did my LLC operating agreement, which also included I did a trust specific for the business. I didn't put any of my personal things into it because I was just getting started. And I'm like, let's just do it this way for now. To do the LLC operating agreement as well as the trust for privacy reasons, it was about $900.
Oh, okay.
So it was very nominal
Yeah.
for the peace of mind.
Yep.
And the attorney that I went to has been in Arizona, and he kind of wrote the LLC statutes in the 70s. Richard Keat, he's amazing. And so I got somebody of that caliber.
Yeah.
So I want business owners to see this planning as an investment.
Yeah.
It's a protection. It's just like how you get E&O insurance. If you are blue collar and you have contractors insurance, just think of it as another insurance policy that you need to take care of.
Yep.
And
like that
then
framing.
kind of the rule with amending that is, again, do you have a big change in the business? Did someone buy in?
Yeah.
Are you, doing any shareholder things now? So that's kind of your other side of it is if you have large changes, you need to go back in and make sure your operating agreement stays up to date.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So you help with LLC and business services. What issues arise when legal ownership doesn't reflect how the business actually operates?
So I just want to clarify the question. I just want to make sure I know what you're asking me. So you're saying that there's an LLC agreement but say you brought new people in and maybe the people in the agreement aren't with the company anymore, or they've taken a step back.
Like they
more.
didn't,
Okay.
they didn't update it, the operating agreement.
Well, then that could cause issues because now that's what we go by. That's what's written down.
The original one?
Correct. So if you've made changes, maybe you fired somebody or you've brought somebody else in. So instead of it being owned by 2, now it's owned by 3, and you don't put it on paper and you don't make it official. Now that other owner would have to fight in court to prove that they are an owner. And so now you've just made this 10 times harder. And who's to say that your other business partner doesn't get greedy? I say, well, I could just keep all of it instead of splitting it.
Mhm.
It wasn't written down. I'm sorry, but people get crazy when people pass away and there's money. People
Sure.
change. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And people tell me all the time, I never thought they would do this. I never thought they would say those things. And I'm like, unfortunately, that's more the norm.
Yeah.
So if you've made large changes, it's supremely important that you document those with, a purchase agreement and then update your operating. But that's where having a good business attorney comes in because you basically leave them on staff.
Mhm.
So when you have a change, you tell them, hey, I got this coming up. And they're like, great, let's get it all documented. Let's get it papered. And then you're just kind of doing it at the same time rather than doing something and then telling them. A lot of business attorneys have a monthly basically membership where you can pay them like X amount and you get like an hour or 2 of their time a month. And so if you're thinking about doing something, you can call them and say, hey, how would we do this? So that might be a good option for people that have a lot going on.
Yep.
Or they're in growth stage and they need kind of that hand holding a little bit more. And I believe most of the firms I know, it's either $100 to $300 a month. It's nominal. Again, it's not thousands of dollars. I'm sure there's firms where it is thousands of dollars. for the Chases and the Banks of America and the big corporations, but that's not what we're all.
Well, like you said, it's an investment though
Yeah.
too. They need to look at it like an investment.
Yeah. Yeah. So you built Copper Wren Law from the ground up.
Mhm.
What about starting your business was harder than you expected?
The thing that was the hardest, and it honestly still is, since I am a non-attorney owned firm, I have a really hard time in my legal community. There it is split. It is polarized. Either the attorneys that I meet think it's great and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I would die without my admin. I would die without my paralegal. Of course, this makes perfect sense. I'm horrible at running a business. I'm an attorney and not a business owner." And then the other half says they have no business doing it. Who do you think you are? You didn't go to like it's very black and white.
Okay.
Um, this program is pretty new. I believe this is year 4. It came out in either 21 or 22. So we're either in 4 or 5. So still a very new program. There's an application process. You have to have pretty much a full background check other than sending them a blood sample. I mean, it's very rigorous.
Okay.
To have this license, I have to go in it was every year. Now it's every 2 years to renew. So they look at me again. If I add people, they must also have a background check. So it's extremely monitored. But that has been the hardest thing is other people in the legal community basically telling me you have no business running a law firm because you don't have a JD. When running a business and practicing law are very much separate things.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of the attorneys that I know and have met. They would not be good business owners because it's a different part of your brain. It's a different wheelhouse set of skills.
Yeah. I mean, like Nicole said, it takes time too.
Yeah.
And like it takes away a lot of your time from the work you're doing. So how do you continuously like, push through that if it's something that you experienced when you started and you're still experiencing it today?
Honestly, I just say I'm only in control of what my firm does and how my staff acts. And if you want to act a fool and you want to make yourself seem really behind the times and you want to act like this is a bad thing, there's not much I'm going to do to change your mind. So I've kind of just gone to the whole, okay, so we don't mesh, and that's fine. You own your own business. You run it however you want. That's the great part. Like you started it, you get to do what you want. I'm just going to choose to align myself with people that are more over here.
Yeah.
So that's how I view it. I kind of let it go wander off a duck's back. And most of the time it is older attorneys. So they've been practicing 30, 40, 50 years. Those are the ones that get me the most trouble. Also, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And so we kind of have that a little bit in there of, oh, no, you're a girl paralegal. So you get coffee and you answer the phone and that's about it. So unfortunately, in the legal community, that's kind of hanging on.
Yeah.
That stigma's hanging on. It's getting better.
Yeah.
But it is still prevalent, unfortunately.
Yeah. I like to call the people that we work with creative entrepreneurs, and that you're the exact example of that, is someone who's kind of good at what they do and then you go to start a business. But what we learned in human resources is that, like, if you're an engineer or a lawyer, you're an engineer or a lawyer. You're not. It's hard to operate a business. It's hard to manage people. It's hard to make sure everything's set up. I mean, it's and that's where I think that you have such a good split of knowledge to be able to do both, because it's very rare that you see that. And we have business owners that we support that are incredibly successful, but they have no business like managing humans, or like, they're the engineer, they're the lawyer, they're the doctor, they're the provider, and like it's totally different. So it's such a good point that you made, that like time will move that out though, and especially like women are becoming more powerful in business and more respected. I'm assuming law, it's probably moving slower than other industries.
It is moving slower. Yeah.
I mean, and this program's new.
This program is new.
So
Arizona was the first state. Utah has something similar. I believe they're in year 3. It's called the Sandbox program. It's similar. They cap their applicants. So they only allow a certain amount to apply every year. And if you miss it, you miss it. You got to wait till next year. Arizona's like, apply and we'll process you.
Okay.
Last I checked, for initial applications in Arizona, they were running 12 to 14 months.
Oh, wow.
So it's gaining popularity. The hedge funds are starting to move in, which that's not what this is created for. So the committee is pushing back on that.
Good.
Because I like to go to their public hearings. So you're able to attend by Zoom, or it's at the Supreme Court building. And so I like to go whenever I can or log in, especially obviously if I'm on the agenda, I appear in person. I think it's really important. And the committee does push back on some of these that are like, I think this is just a money grab, and that's not why we created it. This was created specifically for attorneys that had maybe a long time admin or paralegal. It was just basically a 2-person shingle. And it's like, give them some ownership
Yeah.
benefits.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't have them, you wouldn't have this.
Right.
And so, like I said, those are the attorneys that I see that are like, think it's great, is the ones that really value their staff. The ones that kind of have this archaic view of hierarchy are the ones that are having a really hard time with it.
Mhm.
And I've had several attorneys tell either me to my face or attorneys that have worked for me, you shouldn't go work for her. That firm's going to be closed in 6 months. There's no way she can do it.
How long have you been in business?
I will be going into year 4 next month.
Yes. That's awesome.
So I'm
Congrats.
like, I get it. I hear
Sure.
ya. And trust me, I know other paralegals. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Business owning is not for everybody anyway. So just because I want people to know that if you want to start a business and you feel like you could, you should try.
Yeah.
I feel like you should definitely try because you could be really great at it.
Yeah.
Mhm. Love it.
Yeah.
What about like Phoenix business owners in particular? What's one legal or planning task that they should do every year, especially now that we're at the beginning of the year?
Take out your operating agreement and flip through it. Actually read what you put on paper because a lot of the times it's stressful to do. So you're in it, you got everything dialed in, and then you put it on a shelf. And now I've got to go on to my 10,000 other tasks for the rest of the year. And in your brain, you might go, oh, yeah, I remember what I put in there. Do you really? Because some of the finer details, your brain will just let it go.
Yeah, you
in
check
your
the
head,
box.
Right.
I did it. It's done. It's on the shelf. It's not my problem. So I would say annually, whether you do, a 12-month calendar, if there's a better time in the middle of the year for you to look at things, kind of when you do a review, whatever your company's structure is, every 12 months, I want you to take they'll give it to you in a nice binder, take it out. I want you to actively flip through it, read it, look at the provisions, verify that it's going to the people you still want it to go to. You could have had a falling out.
Right.
They could have been your best friend in January, and now we're in January 26th, and you don't talk to that person. And if something happens to you, they're stepping in. So it's really important that you do read and look at who is actually in there and what it actually says.
Mhm.
And if there's no changes, great. Put it back on the shelf. See you in a year.
Carly, thank you so much for joining us. This conversation is exactly what business owners need to hear when it comes to managing risk. To learn more about Carly Whiteside, the owner of Copper Wren Law, go to www.copperwrenlaw.com. And if you're a Phoenix-based business owner needing HR support, compliance guidance, or leadership help before issues turn into legal problems, visit mossconsulting.com and book time at 13.
It's fast, it's fun, it's the Moss Minute. Gotta